Alright guys, welcome back to the shop. This is going to be our third episode of the Basics to CNC series, and in this episode what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use Carbide Motion. We're going to talk about how to secure our piece to our wasteboard. We're going to also discuss how to do tool changes, zero our machine, and everything else you need to do to actually operate your machine to complete your project. So stay tuned and we'll get to it. Okay, so the first step in this is going to be to hold down your piece of stock to your machine's bed, or your wasteboard if you will. And one of the things you need to do is make sure that this is completely straight with your wasteboard. Now if you watch the wasteboard video, I know I didn't show it, but I talked about cutting grid lines, and I'll get a close up here in a minute, but that's why those grid lines are on here. So what I do is I figure out where I want to put it, and I place the corner of the board in there, and then I just gently lay it down, making sure it doesn't move. Now after that, you can eyeball it with that line and the holes and make sure everything is straight. And once it is, you're good to go. Then we're going to secure everything down with our hold downs. So what I like to have is a support in the back of the hold down, like this. This is where the edge of your workpiece will be, and this is going to be the back. Now the nut is in there, and we'll get a close-up of this here a little while later. The nut is actually in there to put a small screw in to give you that support. However, if that hangs over the edge of your machine, you can't do that. So what I'll do is I'll use another small hold down or a scrap piece of wood, and I'll put it there, put my hold down on there, and use that to support the back of it. Now also, one thing you got to understand is when you're putting these in, you need to be mindful of where your bit's going to travel on that board so you don't accidentally cut into your hold down. Now there may be times when you just can't avoid it, and in that case you need to be thinking about, maybe I should be using some double-sided tape or something instead. But for this this project, our hold downs will work just fine. So let me get the rest of these on here, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to work the machine. Now one other thing you need to keep in mind is on the other side I have the clamps on the corners, but if you notice on this corner I left it open. The reason for that is, and I'll post a screenshot, I guess I forgot to talk about this in the last video, but you need to decide where you want your home point to be on this board, and that's going to be where each operation starts from. That's how the machine knows exactly where to go. I generally use the bottom left hand corner, and like I said, if you look at the screen right now, I'll post a screenshot right here. So you see on the left hand side of the screen there's an option where it says, I believe, XY datum, and you can pick your start point. Now you can do it on any corner or right in the middle. It's really up to you. Me, I choose the corner, so make sure you leave this corner free or wherever you want to start each operation at. Okay, so we have our workpiece secured in the machine. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our Carbide Motion program, and hopefully you guys can see this good enough. I'll make it as big as I can there. Alright, so now once we've opened it, it tells you connect cutter. So then we're going to turn the machine on. That sound indicates the machine's on, and you'll hear the motors engaged, so you know it's on. Another way to tell if your machine is on or off is if you can move the gantry by hand, then your machine is off. Once it's on, everything locks up and you can no longer move it by hand. So we've got it on, and I'm assuming by now that you've actually played with this a little bit and you understand how to move the machine around, and got your homing switches done and everything. But we click on this button right here in the middle and connect the cutter. And then we're going to come down here to jog, and it'll ask you to click to begin homing. Once you do that, as you can tell, the machine's going to home itself to the back right corner, and it's homed. Okay, so now what we're going to have to do is we need to tell the machine where the start point is. And if you remember, I told you that we left that bottom left hand corner free there so that we can actually use that as our starting point. So we'll go in here and I'll show you how to zero out your machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to jog our router all the way over to this corner. Now there's a few ways you can do it. And like I said, hopefully you've taken a look at Carbide Motion so you'll know what I'm talking about as I say it. There's a button that says Rapid Position, and it'll give you 9 spots on that machine that you can move that router. I'm going to pick the center of the machine, and it's going to scoot that thing right to the middle. Then I'm just going to manually jog it over there using my X and Y axis buttons. Got it almost all the way to the X. Now let's scoot the Y axis up. And then when we got it pretty close, we're going to do the Z axis, which is the up and down. And we're going to get it kind of close to the machine. Now, I know a lot of people that have these machines and been doing this a while. They're going to chime in and say, man, you need to make yourself a touch plate because it's so easy. And I know I do. I just haven't done one yet. But have no fear, I will do it one of these days. In the meantime, I'm going to use a piece of paper. So, what we need to do is we need to get this bit centered on this corner. One thing I suggest is if you're using a larger bit, throw a V-bit in your machine to get your 0. It'll give you a nice pointy tool to get it right directly on that corner. Otherwise, you just need a small tool like a 1/16 inch. It'll work just fine. So, trying to maneuver around this camera and do this at the same time, it's kind of tough. But like I said, we're just going to kind of give this a little eyeball here. And for this project, it's a little forgiving. So what we do is we're going to put it on our 0.1 millimeter increment, and we're going to go down until this barely moves. Keep moving it. Now if you notice, it's giving me some resistance, a little too much. We'll take it to the 0.01 millimeter increment and go up. And look at that. There's some resistance, but not complete resistance. And that's going to be good. Now let me take you back up to the monitor here. Okay, we got that bit positioned down there in the bottom left-hand corner. Now what you're going to want to do is set your 0. So our set 0 button's right here. And you want to zero out the X, Y, and Z axis. So you can just hit 0 all, and it'll bring them all to zeros. And then you click done. Now once you've clicked done, that is the new home point for your machine until you change it or rehome your machine. Okay, now it's going to be time to run this first toolpath, and since I have this 1/16 inch bit in here already, we're going to go ahead and do that one first. And if you remember from the programming we did, that's going to be our nut pockets. So pretty simple the way you do this. And also, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like every time I put my files on a thumb drive and I try to run the machine off of that thumb drive, I have problems. So what I do is I take the file off my thumb drive and put it straight onto the laptop, and it seems to have fixed that problem. I don't know if it's just a coincidence or not, but it did fix the problem for me. Okay, so what we need to do here is we need to go to this load setting right here, and we need to find our file. So it's going to be wherever you put it on your computer. And you need to find the correct toolpath. In this case, we're doing the 1/16 inch. If you remember, I named it so I know exactly which one it is. Double click. Now, you can do this a couple different ways. Generally, you would start your router and then run. Sometimes, if you don't want to screw up that corner of the wood and you think the bit's touching it just a tad, but that's where you want it, you can click run, but you got to make sure you hit the on the router before it actually goes down to start doing the wood. For today, we're just going to go ahead and turn the router on before we actually start the toolpath. So, I'm going to turn the router on right now. Watch your ears, it's going to be loud. And then after I turn it on, I'm going to click this little play button, and that's going to start our first toolpath. And then we'll come in here and take a look. And there you can see that it's cutting those pockets out. It's running like a champ. And we'll give that a few minutes to finish up, and when it's done, we'll come back in and I'll show you how to change your tool and start your next path. Okay, so what I'm going to want you to see here is when the machine is almost done with that toolpath, which it's almost done, it's just got to cut one more pocket. The router is going to lift up, it's going to go back over where the home position was, and then it's going to lift up and move back out of the way. So we'll give it just a second to finish this so you can see that. Okay, now at this point you're going to reach in there and you're going to turn your router off. All right, let's go take a look and see what we got here. And as you can tell, it's cut all 12 of our nut pockets exactly like it's supposed to. So now we'll get on to the next step, which is going to be our first bit change. Okay, so in order to do this bit change, we're going to have to change our collet from an 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch to accommodate our larger bit. Loosen that up and get that bit out of there. Take that 1/8 inch collet out and put in our 1/4. And then we'll take our 1/4 inch bit and well, see, now we got a problem. It won't fit in there because the hold down's in the way. But that's okay, that's simple to do. All we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and we're gonna jog our machine out of the way. All right, and this is where the beauty of Carbide Motion comes into play. So we'll get our bit in there. Tighten it down. Okay. And we'll go back out of the machine here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now what we're going to do, and I hope you can see this, is we're going to go back to the Rapid Position tab. We're going to click on that, and you have a couple options. You got current offset X and Y, current offset Z plus 6 millimeters, homing cycle, and done. Now, since we put in a longer bit, we're just going to do our XY offset. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring us right back to the starting position that we started at, but it's not going to mess with what the Z axis on the machine is right now. And I'm going to show you why it's important that if you put a longer bit in, you don't click on the Z plus 6. Because if that bit is less than 6 millimeters above the last height, you're going to end up crashing into your wood. So, current offset X plus X and Y. Now, no matter where you had your machine at, it's going to go right back to that starting point. So from here, what we need to do is we need to re-zero the Z axis. And the way we're going to do that is just like we did it before. We're going to come in here. We're going to click done on this. We're going to go to our Z axis and just lower it down. When it gets nice and close, lower the increment to 0.1 millimeters or whatever, and then just slowly lower it down to that piece of paper. Okay, got a little too tight there. Raise the Z axis just a tad bit, and then we can go to a smaller increment and just keep feeling around with that piece of paper until you get that good resistance. Go back to set 0, and then all you need to click on is 0 Z, because that's all we're going to re-zero is the Z axis, and that's just to accommodate for the new height of this bit. And then click done. Okay, now once we did that, we can go right back to load, and then our next G code, which is going to be our 1/4 inch nut through holes and the slots. So we'll open that up, click run, and then turn your router on. Once again, please watch your ears. And then begin project. And there it is running. First thing it's going to do is it's going to do those through holes. After that, it's going to go straight into running the slots. All right. Okay, so this has turned into a perfect learning opportunity. And the lesson we learned is secure your workpiece very firmly. We had a little issue and the hold down let go, and as you can tell, we have totally buggered that piece of the board. Now, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and reclamp this back, and I'm going to re-zero it back on this corner, and we're going to continue to run this. The reason I'm going to continue to run it is because we can salvage all but that one, so it's not a total loss. I'm never going to act like I'm perfect at this, and mistakes will be made, things beyond your control, things you forget to do, so just keep in mind, mistakes happen, and you just do what you can to fix them and move on. Okay, so we've got that finished, and we're going to go ahead and do our last tool change here and do our cutout. So we're going to go ahead and put in this 1/8 inch bit, and I know I had to have remembered that that needs to be moved out of the way. All right, now we're going to put in the bit. It's also a good thing to note that it's reasons like that why I don't usually leave my machine unattended while it's running, because you never know what could happen. So, all right, let's home this back, and we'll zero it on the Z-axis. With our trusty piece of paper here. Perfect. Re-zero the Z-axis, click done, load. We'll do our cutout toolpath here, and let's run it. Okay, so we finished our cutout toolpath. We can take this thing out and see how everything turned out. going to take it over to the table. All right, so if you see here, everything was cut, and some was cut more than it was supposed to be. Now, like I told you, this is a learning process. You're going to make mistakes. Even the most experienced people make mistakes every now and then. And hell, for that matter, this is technology. Sometimes it's going to make its own mistakes, even if you did everything right. But in this case, all is well. We lost one, but if you see here, everything's still held in place, and that's what those tabs were for. So all you have to do is knock them out. Now you can get in there with a little bit of sandpaper or something, sand those tabs flat. And the last step that you're going to want to do, which I should have had this stuff ready before I did this, is you get some super glue or something. You're going to want to take your nut and put it in there, and maybe a tad bit of super glue, and then you can take a little palm router or something and cut a rabbet in the end. I had somebody on another video asked me, how come you didn't cut that rabbet with the machine? You can absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with it. I just chose to use a little palm router. You can do it however you like. If you choose to do it with the machine, all you would do is basically draw a long rectangle across the front of all of them, or one per, and just cut a pocket, I don't know, 1/4 inch, maybe a little less than 1/4 inch, and you'll get your rabbet. So that's our finished product, minus the rabbet in the end. And like I said, it's a learning experience. Every time you turn the thing on, you can make a mistake at any time. I think the mistake that we made here was that we went a little too aggressive with that 1/4 inch bit, and it produced a lot of vibration, and that vibration is what worked that clamp down, worked it loose. So you make a mistake like this, you get back into your program and take a look at your settings and try to determine what you did wrong, fix it the next time, and go from there. Okay guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you learned what not to do. And anyway, if you have any questions, please ask in the comments. I try to be prompt about answering them. Sometimes it might take me a few hours, but I'll definitely do the best I can to answer them. As well, please subscribe to this channel, watch my other videos, see some of the other things I've done. If I didn't answer your question here, it might be answered in another video. Anyway, I just want to say thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.